Okay, so it's 3 minutes past 5, and I think we can start now. People are still joining us, um, but we'll be taking questions towards the end of the webinar, so please join us as you can. So hello everyone again. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for our webinar. My name is Angelina Vrisevic, and I'm the Program Manager at the US-UK Fulbright Commission. I look specifically after the UK Postgraduate Awards Programme. So today we will be looking specifically at how to submit a competitive application. The format of the event is quite straightforward, so I've prepared a short presentation about 20 minutes during which I'll share with you some tips and some pointers, and then we will be taking your questions. I do ask you to wait until the end of my presentation to start submitting your questions, and also please do use the Q&A box available at the bottom of the screen. You can submit questions anonymously if you want to. So first of all, I would like to provide a brief overview of the selection process, just to demonstrate that in reality it's a very straightforward process. So in reality there are just two selection steps. It's the online application submission, then we interview a group of people. That normally happens in February. We travel around the country, and when we select a group of nominated candidates, we submit our selections to the board in the US, and then we get an approval. And this is how you become a Fulbright grantee. And as I've said, today we will be focusing specifically on the first step of the selection process. So this is the online application step. So let's start from the very beginning. So there are some basic things you should be aware of, and I hope most of you have heard of at least some of it, but I think it's very helpful to go through that again. And then if you have any questions, if you would like to have anything clarified, we will address that during the Q&A session after my presentation. So first of all, the deadline is at 5 p.m. UK time on Monday, the 8th of November. So you have about a month to work on your application. And please bear in mind that this deadline is for everything. So all paperwork which comes alongside the actual application form. So your references, your transcripts, everything you would like to submit with your application. We do not accept your applications via email. We do not accept late applications either. So on the day, the majority of the applications come in at about 4:30. My advice to you would be to try and submit your application at least a few hours before the deadline, in case you encounter any technical issues, in case a lot of people are submitting at the same time and the system is being slow. Also, it is very important that you review the requirements for each award, especially if you're applying for a partner award. Now, the all disciplines category is very flexible in terms of what we consider, but some awards may ask, for example, for additional work experience. Other awards may have a different deadline, so you may have more time to work in your application. So it's obviously very important that you're aware of all of that. Something I always emphasize is the fact that partner awards, or the majority of our partner awards, are less competitive than the all disciplines category. So if you are still thinking about which award to go for, or if you know that your project is suitable for either the all disciplines category or a partner award, I very strongly encourage you to consider the partner award option, because you will be very significantly maximizing your chances of being interviewed. Another question which comes up on a regular basis is how many awards you can apply for. So you can apply for one award only through one commission, and this award has to be taken up in your first year in the US. So it's either the all disciplines category or one of our partner awards. If you are already studying in the US, or if you're starting your academic year, let's say in January 2022, unfortunately, it's already too late, so you would not be eligible for any of our awards. Also, if you are applying for multiple sources of funding, which we absolutely encourage you to do, so look for other commissions or other organizations, other charities which may be in a position to offer funding. Please do not just upload the same personal statement thinking that that will do. In most cases, it will not. So please make sure that you adjust your application accordingly. And finally, also please submit a supplemental form. A link is available in our instructions. Now, let's talk about the actual content of the application. So some of you may already know that the application is submitted through the online portal. Now, that submission portal is managed by our colleagues in the US. So the same portal is used by everyone in the world. All the commissions, all the posts use the same portal. However, most commissions will have country-specific requirements, and this is why it is absolutely essential that you read the country-specific instructions available on our website. So just to give you an example, the submission portal says that you should not be mentioning your preferred institutions and programs in your personal statement and study objective. Our instructions make it very clear this is an essential part of your application. The US Commission requires you to discuss your choices in your personal statement and study objective. If you do not do so, regardless of your academic record, you will not be interviewed. So this is just one example to demonstrate the fact that it is really, really important that you review and follow the instructions. The country-specific instructions always take precedent over the information available on the portal because the instructions are country-specific. Additionally, I also encourage you to review our website, read our mission, read a little bit about our values, who we are, what we stand for, because you will be expected to demonstrate that you can relate to those values, you understand them, and you would like to endorse them through your work. Another thing to be aware of is the page limit. So we do have a page limit for each of your 2 submissions. So it's up to 2 A4 pages for the study objective and up to 1 for the personal statement. So really, this is not that much writing, and it is important that you stay focused when you're drafting your submissions, that you know why you are writing every single paragraph, that you basically make a point in every single one of them. Now, with regard to the page limit, do keep in mind that we can stop reading your submission when you reach the maximum page limit. So, for instance, if your study objective is 2 pages and 3 lines, and we stop reading your submission at the end of page 2, well, that's fine. Most likely we will understand and we will know everything you would like to communicate to us. Now, if you submit a 5-page document, that is a completely different story. So please make sure that you are aware of that. Another issue which comes up quite often is basically what the whole study objective is about, especially if you're applying for a program which does not include a compulsory thesis or dissertation element, for instance, law or anything arts related, and that's absolutely fine. We are obviously aware that there are quite a lot of programs which do not require you to submit a thesis or a dissertation. Having said that, every single study objective should be telling us what you intend to accomplish in the US, what skills, what experience you would like to obtain there, and what it is important for you to do that particular course to kind of accomplish all your goals, and how that fits into your future plans and aspirations. Now, if you're applying for, let's say, if you'd like to do a PhD in the US, or if you're doing a research placement in the US as part of your UK-based PhD, and you know exactly what you will be doing, you have a hypothesis or you have a very specific research question, by all means, please do talk about it, but I just want to clarify that this is not a requirement. With regard to references, so you will be expected to provide 3 references. Now, I have already mentioned that the references have to be with us by the deadline, and it is your responsibility to make sure that we have them. Now, the references process works slightly independently from the actual application. So the moment you input your referee's contact details, they receive an email notification, an email reference request, regardless of whether you have already submitted your application or not. And they get instructions on what information to provide, how to submit it, and all those details, so they will know what they're doing. But you need to make sure that they also know what the deadline is, that they have that request, that they know what they're doing. So my advice is that you keep in contact with them until they actually submit the reference. When a referee submits a reference, you will be able to track that on the application submission portal. So I think a green tick appears next to their name. You will not be able to access the actual reference, but you will know that they have submitted it. So please keep an eye on that. And also, at least one of your references has to be academic. So at least one of your referees should be able to comment on your academic progress and your academic ability. And all of your referees should be in a position to comment on your suitability for the Fulbright program. For this particular reason, we strongly encourage you to select the referees who know you well, rather than those people who have, let's say, a very fancy job title. With regard to sample work, again, this is something which comes up quite often. For the majority of programs, we do not ask for work samples. So if your work sample is an essay or a dissertation or an article, so anything which is written in this sort of like traditional academic essay writing format, we will not be reviewing that. We will be actively removing those files from your application before your application goes to the reading panel. So please just do not waste your time with this. Now, if you're applying for a, I would say, more applied course, anything arts related, architecture, for instance, you are encouraged to submit up to 4 work samples. You can attach it anywhere in the application. We'll get those materials. And finally, I've put together a few things based on some of the strongest applications we've received recently, and this is something I do believe helps people make the cut, so to speak. So the first thing which I would like to emphasize is the fact that your study objective and your personal statement are key to you being or not being interviewed. It's not about your grades. It's not about your university. It's not about your job title or who your referees are. It's about what you put in your study objective and personal statement. And here it is really important to know that we will be looking for more than just academic excellence. Now, I update our country-specific instructions every year, and this year I've added something we call the selection panels checklist. You can see a screenshot on the right-hand side. This is basically a list with the questions which we will be asking ourselves when reviewing your application. So I encourage you to use that as a checklist. So when you're going through a personal statement and your study objective, you also ask yourself whether you've answered all these questions. And if there is something you haven't covered, I suggest that you go back and revise your submissions. So something I've already spoken about is the importance of selecting your programs and your US institutions. And really, I cannot overemphasize the importance of this particular element of your Fulbright application. We really want to be certain that you have found the right fit for yourself. And this is particularly the case if you're applying to an Ivy League institution. So with the Ivy League, what we want to see is that you have considered a variety of institutions, including non-Ivy League universities. But there are reasons, there is a very strong reason why you should be going to an Ivy League university. And this is something we want to see in your study objective and personal statement. We also want to know that you are excited about the Fulbright program. Now, we obviously understand that the main reason why you're applying to us is because you need funding, and that's perfectly fine. This is exactly the reason why we exist, but we don't want to really be discussing that. We want to know that you are excited about being on the program, that you understand what we're basically about, what we stand for, and that you would like to endorse that through your work. So please do talk about your understanding of the Fulbright program and our mission. And finally, we will also be looking for evidence of leadership, cultural curiosity, and community involvement. And here I just want to talk a little about the fact that we want to go beyond the traditional experiences of setting up a university society, or establishing, running a business, or visiting multiple countries. We do recognize that diverse people have diverse experiences. For instance, if you grew up in a single parent household and you had siblings to look after, tell us about this experience. We do recognize that you are a leader in your own way, but you need to tell us about it. Again, if you grew up in a town with a high immigration rate, tell us about how you've encountered different cultures, how it has made you feel. maybe that was an instance which has sparked your interest in other cultures, and this is exactly why you would like to explore the culture of the US. Or maybe this is how you've become interested in the particular academic area which you would like to research in the US. So do tell us about those experiences and explain to us how they have affected you. And finally, if you're applying for a partner award, I suggest that you check out their social media channels, especially if this is a non-university partner. Do remember that they will be reading your application as well. So this is an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you are interested not just in the Fulbright Commission, but also in that particular partner and what they represent. Now, we do have some other resources other than the country-specific instructions. So some of you may be aware that this year we have launched the Fulbright Ambassadors Initiative. So you now have an opportunity to talk to our grantees and alumni on our website, and they're very happy to share their experiences of both applying to Fulbright and also studying in the US. Our colleagues from the Education USA team run events on a regular basis, and they provide impartial advice on things like admission in the US or securing funding. So their webinar is actually tomorrow in the afternoon, and they will be focusing on the postgraduate admissions process. So do register and attend tomorrow. It's going to be a very, very useful session. Also, if you're a recent graduate or if you're still at university, I encourage you to reach out to your academic advisors, maybe to your career services, because it's very possible that your institution has resources to help you with your Fulbright application. And finally, we've run a few webinars already this year, and some of them are available on our website, so please do check them out. Now, if you need any help, I suggest that the first step is browsing our website. Everything I've spoken about today, everything we will be discussing today, all the resources you need to submit a very good application, everything is available on our website. Now, if you have any questions specifically about the competition process and our scholarships, you can email us at programs@fulbright.org.uk. And if you would like to talk to somebody about education in the US more broadly, please contact our advising team at advising@fulbright.org.uk. That's it from me. As promised, it's a relatively short presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a moment. Okay, and we now have up to an hour now to take your questions. I can see that people have been using both the chat and the Q&A sections. Please do use the Q&A for your questions. You can start submitting them now, and my colleague Camilla will be helping you. So if you have any questions about anything I've covered today or anything I haven't covered today, please use the Q&A session. I'll give you a few minutes to submit any questions you have. Okay, the questions are coming in. Let's have a look. Please use the Q&A box again, because I'm right now on my own here, so it is difficult for me to track both the chat and the Q&A section. Right, so regarding formatting, something I actually forgot to mention. So we do not have any specific requirements with regard to the size and font. Do bear in mind that it should be accessible, so not font 3, please. But in principle, no, there are no requirements as such. Regarding the J1 requirement, I'm not going to talk too much about the visa situation, but it's one of the key policies of the program that you go to the US on the J1 visa, and if you want to stay in the US on a more permanent basis, for example, for work after you complete the program in the US, you will have to come back to the UK for 2 years. We are not in a position to waive this requirement. Again, just to confirm the requirements in terms of the length of each submission. So 1 page, so it's the personal statement is up to 1 page. So what 1 page is just one page, and the study objective is 2. So it's not a piece of paper, 1 page, which is 2 pages. It's just 1. And so overall, you submit 3 pages. If you read that, or if you draft that in a Word document, it should be 3 pages overall. So that's the personal statement and the study objective. In terms of our requirements when it comes to your personal circumstances, age, academic background, we welcome everyone. We also help you with visa arrangements. So one of the benefits of the Fulbright program is that you do not have to pay for the visa. So if you travel with dependents, for example, a partner or children, we help you with that. Something to keep in mind is that the Fulbright would, in terms of the actual finances, you will not be offered more simply because you have family. So you will have to figure that in terms of your financial calculations. In terms of academic references, so as I've said, yes, we do require at least 1 academic reference. Ultimately, this is an academic exchange program. Now, it's up to you who you would like your referee to be, whether it's just your lecturer or maybe an academic advisor, maybe somebody else, a personal tutor. But we do need at least 1 reference which can comment on your academic ability. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to assess the viability of your project. So it is important that there is at least 1 reference which tells us a little bit more about your academic achievement. Regarding anyone, so applying for a PhD in the US, we do encourage you to have been in contact with your preferred institution. You don't need to have done that when you're applying, but we will expect an update during the interview if you are selected. Now, if you are in the position to provide a letter of invitation, that's obviously a bonus. It's not something which will determine whether you are invited to the interview, but if you have been in contact with somebody at your preferred institution and there is evidence that they would like to welcome you, that is obviously a bonus. So I suggest that you do so if you can. Now, regarding double programs, the important thing is that the first year of the program is completed in the US. So if you are starting the program anywhere else, you would not be eligible. If your first year is in the US and the second is elsewhere, somewhere in Europe or back in the UK, we will consider your application. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we have like a specific rule on that, but because your first year is in the US and the funding has to be taken up during the first year, we would consider. Regarding sample work, again, we can provide some very general guidance because ultimately it's up to applicants to decide what they would like to upload. I just want to confirm that we would not accept, or we will not consider anything which is basically is written in the essay format. This is kind of the main way to determine whether you should be uploading anything. If it's sample writing, we don't need it, basically. We will be removing that intentionally from your application, so that will not go to the reading panel. If it's sample work, a recording of your performance, or maybe a set of your poems, or something which is not an academic essay, this will be considered. Normally, in terms of our awards, the applicants who apply for the BAFTA scholarship, all of them tend to upload for work samples. So if you're considering BAFTA, then that applies to you. Right, I think my colleague is now able to join me.
Hi, Angelina.
Hello.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Right, so Camilla will help me with your questions. I have quite a few.
Yes.
So at the moment, so I can see that we have a question about demonstrating leadership. So again, it really depends on what you would like to talk about and what your experiences have been. If you are a president of a society or university campus, yes, it's a good example, but whether it's going to be enough, I don't know until I read all the applications. So basically what I was trying to say in my presentation was more the fact that do not worry if you do not have traditional leadership experience. As I said, we appreciate that, we all come from very different backgrounds. And if, you suddenly feel, oh, I've never led a society, or, I've never run a business, or, I've never had any sort of like traditional role as a leader, do not get discouraged. Think about the experience you have had. I'm pretty sure all of us have had experiences when we had to step up. So just tell us about those. This is basically my point. And if you have more traditional leadership experiences, great, talk about that. So we will take everything as long as you explain to us how exactly that has affected you and what you have learned from that.
There's a couple of questions about the difference between the partner awards and the all disciplines awards. We won't go into specific partner awards and their differences, but just in general.
So the main difference is that the all disciplines award is the most flexible in terms of what you can study in where. So you can study anything at the postgraduate level, anywhere in the US, as long as this is an accredited institution. The partner awards tend to be for either a specific academic area, or we've partnered with specific US institutions. So for example, the Indiana Law Board can be taken up only at Indiana, only in the law department. The award which we offer, the Sir Cyril Taylor Memorial Award, that can be taken up at a variety of institutions, but your project has to be focused on social entrepreneurship. So that's kind of the main difference. Another thing to keep in mind is that at the moment, the majority of our partner awards, while not all of them are fully funded, they are more generous than the all disciplines category. So if the finances is a question, and it is for the majority of us, I suspect. Again, I do encourage you to look at the partner awards. And also, this is something for you to add on your CV. So it's not just, so if you're successful, it's not just Fulbright, all disciplines category. It also demonstrates your commitment to a particular academic discipline. So there are quite a few obvious advantages to going through the partner award.
And there's a couple of questions about explaining your desire to go to a US institution. Is it okay to say that that's just because where the course is, or are there any specific things that you're looking for?
So it's probably easier for me to give you some examples what would be a great explanation. So things like, this is a prestigious institution, or, this is a very well-known course. I mean, I can say that about, the 4,000 institutions which exist in the US, and it will be difficult to argue in many cases. So what we want to see is that you have done research into a variety of institutions and that the course is the right fit for you. So we will expect something more concrete than, the course sounds great. I mean, you can do journalism at I don't know how many hundreds of universities in the US. Columbia tends to be quite a popular choice. So why Columbia, while not the other, I don't know, 2000? And this is particularly the case if you want to go to an Ivy League institution. So some of the things people talk about are specific research centers. So it may be your academic interests aligned with their specialized expertise, members of staff, maybe someone you've worked with already, generally the location as well. So there are a lot of different reasons, and obviously kind of their general kind of ranking and expertise within a particular academic field. But it should be something more than, this is a prestigious institution.
And there's a couple of questions about the requirements of the specific US university. So would that, if that's like tests and stuff, do we advise on any of that?
So the awards team, I myself and my colleagues wouldn't really advise on that. So we leave it up to you in a sense that the application process to your chosen US institutions is a separate process. And this is something you go through yourself. You find out yourself what you are required to submit or do. Having said that, we do have the External Education USA advising team who work separately from us in the sense that they provide impartial, independent advice on studying in the US. So let's say if you would like to talk to somebody a little bit more about the various tests you may be required or expected to take to be considered for a place at a US institution, or anything regarding the admissions process more generally, I do encourage you to register for the event tomorrow afternoon.
And people are asking about in the personal statement about examples maybe of leadership and of extracurricular activities. Is that for all awards? And also how much of that should they include?
So yes, it is for all awards. So we obviously, as I said earlier, some partner awards will have additional criteria, and that is if this is the case, this is specified on the website. But the country-specific instructions and the requirements apply to every single award and every single application. In terms of how you structure it, it's entirely up to you. So I'm not in the position to tell you, whether you should be writing 3 sentences or 3 paragraphs in that. There is no specific model how you should be doing that, and our selected applicants really do that differently. It's also the case that it's up to you in a way where you put what. So for instance, obviously the study objective will be focused on the academic work you intend to complete in the US. But for instance, people often start talking about why they're interested in the US in their study objective, and then they carry on in their personal statement. Maybe, there are kind of academic reasons and some personal reasons behind their choices. The same applies to the extracurricular activities. You may be volunteering and that is related to your academic work, and you want to link that to something you say in your study objective or to the work you intend to do in the US. But then there is something completely different which you want to discuss in your personal statement. So it's, as long as you cover all of that in some sort of a way, it will be fine. I would say I probably wouldn't answer any of the questions on the checklist in 1 sentence. You probably need a little bit more than that. And also, do not just list my extracurricular activities are X, Y, Z. So we expect some sort of a narrative there.
There's a few questions about references. There is the question if fellow students can be references. Also, if you're somebody who hasn't been in academics for a long time, what is the requirement in those cases as well?
Okay, so in terms of the requirements are the same. We obviously appreciate the fact that if you haven't been in academia for a long time, it may be tricky for you to get an academic reference. But as I've said, we are an academic exchange program. We need someone to be in a position to comment on your academic achievement. If you feel, depending on your current employment or what you're currently involved in, if you feel that there is somebody else, your manager at work, who can comment on your project and your academic ability, I mean, you can ask them to be a referee, but generally speaking, we need somebody who can do so. And normally that is somebody who knows you in an academic environment. In terms of who can, so about fellow students, I would say no, not really, unless they happen to be your volunteering manager, for instance, or you work together, you have a part-time job and they're your supervisor, and again, their reference would be appropriate, but the references cannot be provided by family members or friends. So the people who are your referees are expected to know you in a professional/academic capacity.
And so this kind of is a question that goes together. So what are common mistakes in an application, and also what are things that really stand out in an application?
Okay, the main thing, read the instructions. I mean, people laugh at me in the office. This is the main reason I was like, no, we're kind of, unfortunately, this is not going through, is because I can clearly tell when people do not follow what we ask them to do. It's really, really frustrating, and it's, you know, it's really such a shame when you receive a really strong academic application from someone with excellent grades, excellent references, and they do not mention the Fulbright program a single time in their submission, and that happens every single year. So I would say this is like the most kind of upsetting experience for us, especially when it's a strong application, when it comes to the academic work and the project. So I would say it's more important that you cover everything and submit a kind of well-rounded application than, you know, dedicating all your time and all your effort and all your 3 pages to your absolutely breathtaking academic project and talking about, you know, nothing else. So I would say this is the most common theme which unfortunately we witness every single year. In terms of standing out, again, to me personally, I can talk a little about the sort of like the elements of the applications and the interviews which I remember. Those tend to be the justifications for non-Ivy League institutions. Those tend to be the things which get literally bravo in notes from like the reading and the interview panels. So those tend to be, in many cases, extremely strong justifications. Another thing is tell us your story. Do not think about what we want to hear. Think about who you are, what your experiences are, where you come from, and how you can use all of that to, you know, basically tick off all those questions which I've spoken about earlier today. And I'm quite convinced that at least the majority of you can do it.
Yeah. Just 2 things to reiterate if people joined late. There will be a recording of this available on our website. So that's one question we're getting a lot. A second one that maybe some people missed the first part is the difference between the online form where it says not to mention specific institutions and our application instructions where it says that you must name specific institutions. So just to reiterate that, you should follow the UK application instructions.
And also regarding the recording, so we are recording the webinar. The reason why we did not advertise that on the website is because we do not know exactly when this recording will become available. So we very often use our recordings as kind of training materials for the upcoming year. So this is why we didn't want to advertise it, because it's possible that we'll have the recording ready 1 week before the deadline. That may be a little bit too late for some people. But yes, we are recording the webinar, and at some point it will become available on our website.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question about being a recent graduate, so not having too much work experience. Does that put your application at a disadvantage?
Absolutely not. So again, I'm going to go back to the point about, you know, the diversity of experiences. If you would like some reassurance, I suggest that you have a look at our Fulbrighters profiles on our website. You will see that we try to recruit people coming from various backgrounds, both professional and educational. So the short answer to your question is no.
And is it okay to only put one institution you're interested in, or do you have to put multiple?
It's perfectly fine to put one. In a way, so the kind of the good thing about that is that you will spend less kind of time and space explaining why you were interested in that particular institution. On the other hand, you will be considered for only that one course, that one university. So if you do not get in, unfortunately, we are unlikely to be able to offer you the award in that particular case. At the same time, I can't really think of particularly strong or very strong applications which have 10 institutions in it. So my advice would be not to go above 4 universities. Otherwise, it just becomes too difficult for you to provide good reasoning for every single choice and then to cover everything else in your submissions that we would like you to do.
There's one question about, it's a bit more technical, but how do you specify that you want to apply for one of their partner awards on the IIE forum online?
So basically, there are quite a lot of sections when you're going through the application, and when you select the country, the system reconfigures itself to give you kind of correct options when it comes to the award selection. So at some point on page 3 or whatever, you will be asked what award you're applying for, and then you will have when you click on the selection button, you will basically have all the awards in the alphabetical order. One of them will be the all disciplines, and then you get everything else will be a partner award, and you just select whatever award you prefer. I think, is this the question? Have I answered that question?
No, that's perfect. Okay, so there's also they're asking about, you mentioned that it's not just about academic merit, but is this for all of the awards or only for specific ones?
It's for all awards. So again, just to confirm that our instructions apply to every single award. Obviously, as I said, with partner awards, there may be some additional requirements. And my advice, again, if you're in a position to do so, please visit their website. Maybe you would like to write a little bit about your interest in that particular award in your personal statement study objective. But in terms of all those requirements, i.e. the institutions, the Fulbright program, we will be looking for all of that.
And it's actually quite a good question. So is there, does it have to be 2 separate sections, the research study objective and personal statement, or can it be one long 3-page answer?
It should be two submissions. So because otherwise it just gets a little bit too confusing, and normally the good applications have these 2 pieces separate, and they are written differently in a way. And I know this is a quite simplified way to explain it. Your study objective is your academic work, so it tends to be written in kind of like more academic style in terms of basically you tell us what you want to do, and in your personal statement you tell us who you are. And this is where you can be kind of quite creative in terms of how you express yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a question about distance learning. So if there's some distance learning in the course, can it still be eligible for an award?
We do not sponsor distance learning courses, so it has to be an in-person course. Now, if there are any changes to your timetable because of the COVID, for instance, there is a particular module which is delivered online, the rest of your program is delivered in person, and you go to classes on a weekly basis, but there is that one element which you will be doing online, that should be fine. There are some additional regulations which we have to comply with, and this is something we get advice on from our colleagues in the US. But if the program is distance learning, and if you're not planning to be in the US pretty much all the time during your course, unfortunately the course wouldn't be eligible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so can figures or images can be included in the study objectives?
In principle, yes. I can't really think of that happening I wouldn't say that happens very often. I can't think of any pictures. Some graphs maybe, but given the fact that 3 pages is really not a lot, I would probably encourage you not to do it. It's fine if you manage to do so, it's perfectly fine. So you're not going to be penalized for that. But given the amount of information we are requesting, it's likely that you will be missing something else, something important.
Does applying to a partner award mean that you automatically are applied to the partner university?
No, so the application process is separate. So if you would like to apply, for example, to Indiana, Minnesota, New York, basically the universities with which we offer partnerships, you need to apply to them separate. Now, you don't need to have applied when you submit your application to us. That is, you just need to make sure that you are aware of the deadlines, but you deal with that separately from us, and we sort of the university only notifies us of the result in terms of whether you are successful or not. So we are not involved in that process in any way. With regard to the 2 Brown Awards and the British Friends of Harvard Business School, I just want to point out that the Fulbright deadline is in April 2022, and this is because for these 3 awards, applicants need to have been accepted to be considered for a Fulbright award. So this is why we have a different deadline.
Are there any standard questions that can be provided to referees in advance of them having to fill out the letter of recommendation?
Not really. The system is set up automatically in the US. So the reference which they will be providing consists of kind of 2 parts. The first one is actually they are asked a number of questions and they select an answer to those. So they're given a number of answers and they select the most appropriate. And then they either upload or type up a reference for you. This is why we encourage people to contact their referees in advance and basically discuss that, so that the referee knows that they will be, or the expectation is that they know that you are applying for a Fulbright program award and that they can actually say something about it.
Okay. Can you maybe give examples of how people can demonstrate their commitment to the UK or wanting to give back when they return to the UK?
Again, it's I wouldn't want to use. I try not to use specific examples because then I will have 300 applications having a very similar examples, and then we'll have to take all of that. So in terms of your commitment, I would say we would like to know how you're planning to use the expertise and the knowledge you will have obtained in the US upon your return to the UK. So because it's so the exchange happens between the UK and the US. We are obviously interested in you having a fantastic time in the US, learning lots of things there, but then also coming back to the UK and using that knowledge here. So basically, this is what we would like to know, kind of how you envisage that sort of exchange and what you think you will be able to bring back.
Okay. There's a question about how many awards are offered per year, or the difference between the different.
All the stats which we cannot give out.
Which we never give out.
So we do not give out specific numbers simply because first of all, it changes every year and it can be very confusing because we have such a different kind of competition rate for different awards. So the information I can provide is that kind of our standard year is about between 20 and 25 awardees, and that includes everyone. With the all disciplines category, we tend to award up to or between 10 and 15, and that depends on our budget and some internal constraints. In terms of the number, again, we we receive very different numbers, but I can say for the all disciplines, we're looking at like hundreds of applications.
And there was a question about families and dependents on Fulbright awards.
So yeah, that's I think we've talked about a little bit before. So that's perfectly fine if you have a partner or if you have kids and you would like to take them with you to the US. We do sponsor their visas as well, so they will be going on. So you will be going on J1, and they as dependents will be going on J2. So we sponsor that visa. We help them with visa paperwork, so you all go together. Something to keep in mind that the same regulation regarding coming back applies to them as well. So if they would like to stay in the US after you complete your course to, for instance, get a job there, unfortunately, they will not be able to do so until they have spent 2 years in the UK. Also, our award is not determined by your financial responsibilities with regard to your dependents. So, for instance, the All Disciplines Award is up to $45,000, and it doesn't really matter whether you're going on your own, whether you have a partner and 3 kids, for instance. So this is something you will have to factor in. So you will need to have your own personal funds to be able to do so, and you will be expected. So to get your visas, you will need to demonstrate that you have enough financial resources to support yourself and your family. So anyone you would like to go with to the US. We help you with all that paperwork in terms of we process all your visa documentation, but you will have to provide that information to us. So please keep that in mind. Right, what else have we got? Okay, just give me a second. Regarding justification for studying at an Ivy League institution, again, as I said, I cannot answer these questions because this is what I will be reading in your applications in November. I'm going to repeat myself in a way. If specifically with the Ivy League, we want to see evidence that you have considered other institutions as well, and there is either one very strong reason or a selection of reasons why you need to be going to that particular institution. So some of the things you may be considering, and that applies to all institutions, not just the Ivy League, are the academic staff who will be teaching or supervising at the time, the research they do, generally the departments. Sometimes people also mention sort of the financial aid side. Also the location, so it also depends on the type of work you will be doing. So basically it's probably easier for me to talk about the things which we wouldn't consider strong reasons. So again, with the Ivy League, again, we receive a lot of applications where the justification for going to Harvard or Columbia or Yale is because this is a great institution. Well, I'm not obviously disputing that, but we can say that about any pretty much university in the US. So please do look into this further. Sorry, we're having some technical issues, so I'm having to take over. So in terms of field work or studying abroad, again, if this is a component of your course, so if you're expected to go abroad to do some work, for instance, if something archaeology related or anthropology or anything basically, and this is part of your course, then yes, that should be fine, and you're also in a position to go to, for example, conferences or again something which is related to your work, so that should be fine as well. So you can apply for a course which requires you to go on trips, as long as that is your academic work related. Okay. So in terms of the partner awards and their requirements, so those requirements are, if they are asking you to have work experience, that's the requirement. If you do not have work experience outside your academic studies, then unfortunately you will not be considered for that award. So I do know that we have at least one award which requires professional work experience. So unfortunately, that award is not suitable for anyone who's still at university. In terms of your long-term career plans, I mean, obviously, we're not expecting you to put forward, the 30-year plan. And we also appreciate the fact that things change, and in 5 months' time, things may be very, very different. We do expect you to talk about that, and this is something which is normally discussed both at the application and interview levels. But we are not expecting a particularly detailed answer, which is a plan. It's more for, basically when you say that you want to study X, Y, Z, you normally have some sort of an idea why you want to do it. And we want to have that kind of brief discussion in your submitted materials. Now, in terms of bringing back to the UK and being in the UK, I mean, I'm not sure who. In terms of like citizenship, I want to point out that we do consider non-UK citizens if they would like to apply for our awards, but they are expected to want to come back to the UK after that. So we do expect you to want to give back to the UK in some sort of a way. If you're not planning to ever come back to the UK, regardless of your nationality, it's a bit of a question mark for us, because as I said, it's ultimately an exchange program, and we are funding you for you to then come back and use that expertise to benefit the country. But if you feel that you are in a position to do so from elsewhere, in a more sort of like international role, or maybe representing the UK elsewhere outside the national borders, that's fine. Again, it's a very sort of like subjective judgment, so it really depends on what you put in your personal statement and study objective. But I would say the most important thing with regard to coming back to the UK and giving back to the UK is the sort of the latter. So we would like to know how you want to give back upon your return. Right, just a second, we have another question. So we have again a question about applying only to one institution. That's perfectly fine. As I've said, in a way, it probably makes it easier for you to justify why you would like to go there, especially because in many cases, again, from my experience, when people apply to one institution only, they already know really well why they want to go there. So probably you've already answered that question. And if you have a compelling reason, that is kind of ticked off the list. So as I said, it's perfectly fine to apply to one university only. Right, let's have a look at the chat box. Okay, we've gone through the Q&A box. If there are any more questions, please feel free to submit them. We still have a little bit of time. All right, so we've got another one. So regarding the whole application, the application form which you will be filling in, I must admit it can seem a little bit repetitive at certain stages. So you will be asked to talk about your employment, about your education, and then upload some paperwork. So it's fine if you, for example, mention something in one sentence, in one phrase, somewhere in the application form, in all those boxes you will be filling in, and then you elaborate on that in your study object or your personal statement. So that's perfectly fine. One thing not to do is you should not be kind of repeating the content. So for example, repeating the content of your study objective in your personal statement, or vice versa, or let's say submitting like an extensive version of your CV instead of your personal statement. So, or just kind of listing your experiences. So as I said, your study objective is more about your academic work, and your personal statement is your story. It's about who you are. And if you're expanding on something you've already mentioned somewhere in the application, especially the study plan section, that's perfectly fine. Basically, the study plan section is kind of a very, very brief summary of what you will be talking about in your study objective. Regarding the things which stand out, I'll talk a little bit about that again. We don't have any more questions at the moment. So, and again, this is my personal perspective. I'm probably the only person who actually reads all the applications. So in terms of what kind of stands out to me and what I remember are things like very good university justifications, and in many cases, those are non-Ivy League choices. It's your personal story. It's about where you come from, like not necessarily geographically, but your background and how this has helped you become who you are, and how you see the Fulbright helping you on that journey to sort of like continue to go on. Also, would you really love reading about you loving the US outside academia? So this is another thing to think about. We want to hear about, I don't know, maybe you wanting to dance salsa somewhere in the South, or, going on like a food trip, or, something which completely has nothing to do with your US university experience, but it's very much about your personality and, something which is completely not academic, but something you really love about the US, or you want to explore about it. So maybe art galleries, or we've read some interesting things about locations which are not New York, not Washington DC, not California, something a little bit more exciting. So those are the applications we tend to remember. Do keep in mind that we will be getting a lot of applications from the applicants who want to go to New York, to places like Columbia, New York University, Harvard. So, you will be competing with each other if you want to go to the same institution in a way, because we will be looking for, slightly more exciting, reasons and explanations for your chosen institutions and your chosen programs. If you want to go to Iowa, most likely you will be the only one, and you will be like, oh wow, what is this application? So yes, even if you want to, if you're able to submit something a little bit more exciting and something different, please do so. We definitely appreciate that. Right, so it's 6:05. I think we've gone through pretty much all the questions. If there is anything else you would like me to go through, or you have any further questions, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to pop them into the Q&A box. Otherwise, we will be wrapping up. As I said, you should have our contact details. All of that is available on our website. So if suddenly 3 minutes after the end of the webinar, you realize that you have all those questions, feel free to get in touch with us. I do want to note that we're receiving a very high volume of the questions, which are, shall I mention the universities in my application? Or can I apply for 5 awards? So a lot of these questions are answered in the instructions. We will answer every single question. So I'm not discouraging you from emailing us. It's more the fact that it may take us some time to get back to you. And sometimes it's probably easier to just go through some of the information available on our website, and you will find the answer to your question. If not, as I've said, even if the answer is available on our website, we will get back to you. Right, so I think we are done for today. So Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I do hope that you found this session helpful. Obviously, I do appreciate the fact that it's a little bit frustrating that, I can't really give you specific examples of what sort of leadership we're looking for, or, how to apply to an Ivy League institution. But ultimately, it's kind of your kind of homework, and you can probably do it so much better than me. I guess kind of the main point to make is the fact that there is no right way to, or there are no kind of right things or wrong things to say in your application. It is very much about you, very much about your experiences, and we just hope that the materials we provide enough encouragement and enough assistance for you to submit a good application. Do not get discouraged if you're not invited to interview. We have to turn away a lot of very strong candidates simply because of our budget constraints. So it's really not, it doesn't mean anything in a sense that it doesn't say anything about your academic potential or you as an individual. If you're interested, apply again. We always have people reapplying. We always have people, often have people re-interviewing for us. And there is absolutely no judgment around that. Best of luck to you. As I said, if you have any questions, please get in touch. And I will be seeing some of you in February. Thank you.